Tony and I got married at an early age, and back then, we didn't have much. But from the very beginning, Tony was determined to create a better future for our family. Shortly after we were married, Tony joined the Army and we moved to our first duty station at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Those weren't always easy years, but they taught us the importance of sacrifice, faith, and commitment. What I've always admired about my husband is that he's the same person at home that people see in the public. He's honest, he's humble, and he genuinely cares about people. He's a devoted husband, a loving father, and a proud grandfather. Tony and I have been together for 43 years, and I've been blessed to stand beside him through every chapter of our lives. I'm Annette Umpinko Ada, and I humbly ask for your support and vote for my husband, Tony Ada, for Governor of Guam.
I'm Tony Ada, and I approve this message. Together, we'll put Guam first.
In the battle of the forces between good and evil, it isn't enough to be upset about the evil. And also, how you are upset about things. And I'm guilty of this a lot. How you get upset about things and how you act toward or about how upset you are also can put you on some shaky ground in that battle between good and evil, right? Like you become rightfully upset about evil things that happen, but don't fall for becoming part of that evil as you react to it, right? I really hope that I'm seeing that the stream is not very steady right now, but anyway, it's continuing. So it's not enough to be upset. There's got to be an action to it that brings people toward the good, and you got to, at the very least, say something where you see bad things happening. You speak it out. If you see someone who is doing something that is rooted in some type of evil, you have a polite conversation with the person, and where there is ignorance, you try to instill education. And in terms of and we know it because we live it, because it's become endemic in our political culture, especially here in Guam, but also in the CNMI, right? And we don't like to use the term, or we don't normally use the term evil. We use terms like corruption, transactionalism, cronyism, or what people normally say, the same old stuff, or the same old or this is how it's always been. But all of those are descriptions of something that is evil. And what is something that is evil? Because you don't normally think of it as evil, and when you're participating in it, you don't think that you're an evil person, and you're not an evil person, but there are evil acts, and they are rooted absolutely on what is not right. And what is not right is what is not ethical. And it's very easy for even those of us who think that we're good, or that we do good things, to slip and to fall into those cracks of what is unethical in our daily lives. Well, when it comes to politics, I think there are very clear lines that we all see, especially when we're on the outside looking in, when we're not involved in the political system. And from the outside looking in, it's much easier to notice it. We're not involved in it. I hope we're not involved in it. I hope you're not transacting with any of the politicians or any of the people in power, for them to scratch your back so that you be able to scratch their back. I hope that's not you. And if it is you, I hope you take a step back and realize that you're contributing to the problem. You have joined the forces of evil. And it's very easy for you to reverse that and to join the forces of good by just denying the forces of evil your participation. That's all it takes. Denying your participation in that. And how do you do that? How do you act on that? You go and vote. One of the things that I continue to hear from people is, oh, it's never going to change, so I'm not going to vote. And I'm thinking in my head, I don't think you did very well in math in school, because that doesn't math out. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Because in order for anything to change, you contributing to the arithmetic of everyone else who is like you has to go and actually vote. And if you and other people who are like you and think like you and are good like you all decide that it's not worth it, then nothing's going to change. That's entirely how this whole thing works. And so the more you see voter turnout go down, the more you're going to complain about corruption, because corruption is going to go up, because the only people who are voting are the ones who are benefiting from the system the way it is. And the system being the way it is such that yesterday we were treated front and center with our popcorn and everything to a display or to an admission of a transactional system. The director of administration, the guy who is in charge of the dispersal of your cash, your money, the taxpayers' dollars. This is the cash director of the government. This is the director who holds the cash and disperses the cash based on checks and balances that the legislature and the government accounting standards have implemented. And we saw an admission from the cash director of a political patronage system using our cash dollars, our tax dollars, for what essentially amounts to political bribery. And thankfully, in this instance, you had senators, because it doesn't always happen this way. The senators haven't always called this stuff out over the past couple of years. But thankfully, this time, the senators saw it, and they had the cojones to be like, wait a minute, this is wrong. One of them even called it out. One of them, I mean, so in a conversation with Senator Chris Duenas last night, he was trying to not be accusatory, but you had Senator Therese Terlahi, who called it out. He said, "Is this money? Is this money for the endorsements that the mayors have been giving? Is that what it is?" I'm going to play that clip for you today. That's one of the things that we're going to discuss today. I don't think we should let this issue go. Another thing we're going to discuss today is how the administration is asking for 13 point some, almost $14 million for recovery efforts for Sinlaku and Bavi. And what we're not going to talk about today, which is a very big issue, is why the hell does the administration need that much in local funds when these things in the past have been covered by federal funds? And it absolutely goes to the fact, the simple fact, that the federal government doesn't trust the local government's use of the federal government's money. It's just such a simple thing. And it isn't, and I know people would tend to equate that with the whole PUA funding thing, which is a whole separate thing, right? And the Fed should absolutely not trust us, at least this administration, with public funds, with federal funds. But it's more closely related to the problems with the spending, the misuse of federal grant funding for disaster recovery. And this is why you see this unprecedented request from the governor through the legislature into special session for $14 million for typhoon recovery is one of the issues. It's $42 million in total in supplemental funding for this fiscal year. But that's not where I wanted to go with this. Where I wanted to go with this issue is they want to use about 13 million of that for a wall, a retaining wall. And I'm out here wondering because I'm seeing the emails and the messages and the phone messages come in, and I'm inundated with this stuff. And I need to take a break soon because I'm about to lose my mind about how much work there is. But the one of the top things coming in from people, regular people, and it's ranges from the poor to the middle class, is what about DSNAP? Where's the assistance for our food losses? And then I got a message from a Hoggett resident about I think it's a 70-year-old man with his 3 dogs. He lost his boat. That's where he lived with his 3 dogs over at the Hoggett Marina. And now he's homeless. He lost his boat from the typhoon, and now he's homeless. All he has is just him and his 3 dogs. He's not getting any help. What about individual assistance for losses? Where is the administration's priority of individual assistance for losses? Because this administration has failed to convince the federal government to grant individual assistance through FEMA. So the legislature came in and they're like, hey, there's this money. Use it for an individual assistance program for our people. But instead, the administration has prioritized a wall. Probably because they have a contractor in mind to build that wall because of transactions that have been made. And then the last thing I want to talk about, I want to bring you information from Lindsay Bennett, who is one of our columnists, and we'll be publishing some of her latest work, but it's about childcare grant funding. And I don't understand the issue well enough. So what I'm going to do is read you what she wrote because it's eye-opening. One of the things that the senators will be discussing is funding for these childcare centers, for these daycare centers, because the administration has absolutely failed to reimburse them for what they are already owed. We will talk about these 3 very important issues on the other side of this commercial break. Stick with us.
Leadership isn't measured by campaign promises. It's measured by a lifetime of keeping them. For years, Tony Atta has delivered results for the people of Guam. He authored Guam's Castle Doctrine, strengthening the rights of law-abiding citizens to protect themselves and their families. He passed laws protecting consumers, strengthened opportunities to bring more doctors and healthcare professionals to Guam, fought for small local businesses, and worked to make government serve the people, not the other way around. His record isn't built on speeches. It's built on action, on integrity, on keeping his word. That's what put Guam first means, putting our island first.
As your governor, I will lead with integrity, and every decision I make will put Guam first. I'm Tony Atta, and I humbly ask for your vote.
I'm Tony Atta, and I...
Good Morning Show with Troy Torres is brought to you by 76 Circle K Guam.
So the Guam legislature is in session, called there by the governor. The governor threw down a bill to them and said, hey, look, we need $42 million in appropriations. There is all this excess funding or these monies that came in that were not identified as revenue, not appropriated by the legislature, therefore. And excess funding for fiscal year 2026 anticipated, right? And we're almost at the end of the fiscal year, so it's not really that much of a big deal. It's money that's going to come in, right? Or it's money that most of it's already come in as excess, right? So the revenue side, I don't think is that much of an issue. I know some senators. Wait, can you give me 1 second, okay? Because I'm getting a call that continues to call in, and I don't know if it's important. Hi, friend. I'm on a live stream right now. Can I call you right afterward, or is it very important? Oh, okay. Thank you. Okay, bye. Okay, sorry. I don't think there's much of a problem on the revenue side, even though some senators, or at least one senator, has raised an issue. But it's the appropriation side of this thing, right? So it's for three things basically. It is about $14 million for Sinlaku and Bavi typhoon relief. A certain amount of money for childcare, and I can't for the life of me, and I was prepared to say this right before the show started, and I'm drawing a blank right now. There's a third category. It's anyway. We're not going to talk about that third category. It's $42 million, and let's start with the $14 million for typhoon relief. The senators, it was mainly Speaker Frank Blas and Senator Chris Duenas who were whittling this down, and they brought administration officials before them. Very smart thing that Chris Duenas did, by the way. He was like, "Nah, we're gonna have all these people here because we're not going to be in a situation where one of them saying, 'Oh, you got to check the other one,' or this person said this, and then then we're never able to get to what the truth is." So they were able to whittle down. They tallied what each of these agencies, Department of Education, National Guard, Guam Police Department, all of their different asks, and the Mayor's Council for what it was that they were expecting or they needed to pay for, and it came nowhere close to $14 million, to the point where Vince Ariola, the Director of Public Works, had to admit, yeah, we could take all of this money because we need to build a retaining wall. That's basically what it was, which I suppose that's not an unimportant issue. That's an important issue, building a retaining wall. I'm not trying to douse the importance of that or how critical that is. But what floors me is how little of a priority it is to the administration, and I hope not to the legislature, but to the administration, how low of a priority it is to provide assistance for our people who truly have suffered losses because of the typhoon and because of the administration's failure to get the federal government to trust this administration to administer federal funds, to receive federal funds for disaster recovery. We are not getting individual assistance. We are not getting DSNAP. So what did the legislature do prior to Bavi coming? The legislature authorized the administration to use funds to provide for individual assistance, local individual assistance, local funds, so that people can be helped to recover. And what is individual assistance supposed to cover? It's supposed to cover things like your losses in your house, like a little bit of, I don't think individual assistance covers like roof repairs. I think that's another category, but I'm not entirely sure. But what about the fact that there are people who lost homes? There are people who lost parts of their homes. There are people who have car damage that insurance isn't going to cover, or they don't have insurance. And then, of course, for the vast majority of people, it's the food losses, which is very expensive. And it's a critical thing during the summer because the kids are not in school to get the free lunches at the school. Hunger is an issue on this island, especially during the summer. And so when all of these residents ask, where's the DSNAP? Where's the money for our food losses? And the administration goes before the legislature and says, yeah, we'd like to use this money for a wall. We can't calculate to the $14 million that we're asking for anything else. But we need it for a wall. It flies in the face of, and it dumbfounds me, right? Like, either our society has already given up on any sort of remediation of how far down we've allowed our government to get, because it's almost like we're not batting an eye to how tone deaf the administration is to the plight of the poor and the middle class, which is the vast majority of this island, and from which this administration transacts for its votes by making unethical, evil promises and transactions with people just so that they can get their vote. So I got a message yesterday, broke my heart. It's a story that I'm going to do. I got the pictures and everything. of an old man, skinny old man walking on the rocks of the Hoggett Marina with his three dogs around him. And the story from the source is that this old man, he lived in a boat, and that boat sunk during Bavi. And that was all. That was his house. That was his house with his three dogs. He doesn't have family, and now it's just him and his three dogs. I don't know if he's getting food. I just know from the source that he's homeless now. And so, where is the support for him? Where is the support for those who have to remain in shelters or want to remain in shelters because they don't have a home to go back to because their home was destroyed by Bavi, whatever it was that they called a home? Or what about the people who went through, what about the people who incurred losses because of Bavi, because something blew away from their home or because they had car damage? And of course, the food losses, right? Where's the sense of priority? And then also, where's the outrage? Like, you cannot, those of you who are watching this, and thank you, by the way, for watching this, if you're watching this on live stream or on the replay, but those of you who are watching this and myself, we cannot be the only ones outraged about this. If you're commenting it, you cannot be the only ones who have those comments. I have to imagine that we're still sensitive enough as a people to be concerned about the plight of those around us who have suffered. And I have to believe that some of you have suffered these losses as well. This is not something to just let go. This is not something to just be like, oh, this is how the government is, or this is how it's always been. Because I don't think that's true. This is not how it's always been. It's just we've been so used to it for the past 7 years that I guess it's become part of our mentality, part of our psyche, that this is how it is. This is how it's going to be. This is how low the bar has become. But man, we have this opportunity to demand better and to actually make a difference. And all I'm hearing from some people is, yeah, I'm not going to vote. And I want to be like, are you stupid? How stupid are you? You're going to contribute to your own demise. What it is that you complain about all the time, you're going to contribute to it. Because this is not right, and it's also not normal for us to be like, it's all right. They want to build a wall. They can use that money instead of using it for food losses and repairing roofs and making sure old men with their dogs aren't homeless in Hoggett. It's okay. Let them use the money for a contractor to pay off the developer who's been giving them lots of campaign funds at their fundraisers at the Dusit. Let them do that rather than providing for individual assistance the way that the legislature has authorized. I mean, it makes no sense to me that is where we are as a society. And I want to believe that we can do better. And in 8 days, we get this chance throughout a 2-year period. There are very few days during those 730 days that we have the opportunity to have a voice. Don't waste that voice. Now, there is yesterday, no, you know what? I'm going to save the clips. There's 2 clips I want to show you. I'll save those clips for the other side of the commercial break where we'll talk more about the mayors and the funding, because that's just, the Attorney General needs to investigate. You know what? No, I don't think I'll surprise Colin, but after the show, I'll call the Attorney General and ask him if he intends to launch an investigation into the possibility that the administration has politically bribed mayors, or that mayors have accepted bribes from the administration using public funds, and all of that stuff that came out yesterday. This is a very big deal. On the other side of the commercial break, we'll talk about that whole mayoral thing, and I want to provide for you footage from yesterday's session of the questioning that Senator Therese Terlahi did of Ed Byrne and Jesse Alec and Joy Jean Arceo. We'll get to that on the other side of the commercial break. Stick with us. Gosh, now I want to eat a Subway sandwich. Gosh, that sandwich. I love sandwiches. I'm like a big sandwich. Like, so I just said I'm like a big sandwich. I'm a big sandwich lover. Like, I love sandwiches. If someone clipped that, it'll be me saying, I'm like a big sandwich. I'm kind of fat. Yeah, I am. I'm not one of those regular chamorros who like just loves and can't live without rice. Like I like rice. Rice is fine. Rice is good actually. Rice is really good with kaddu. Rice is really good with especially with some doni and like bistec or something like that. You know, that's wonderful and all. But I can live without rice. Like I don't need rice. Like it's not something that I need to have all the time. But bread, sandwiches, oh yeah. And I recently got a call from my friend Benita Manglonia, who got a shipment of, and I'm surprised because of the destruction that Bobby did over in Rhoda. And I don't know how, you know, a storm like that affects the crops with the roots, you know, the sweet potato in the ground. But she said she got some Rhoda sweet potato. That's the best sweet potato in the world. I'm gonna get some of that anyway, and give some to Johnny Rosario and Lonnie Solis. So anyway, the someone said sandwich Troy. I love that so much. Sandwich Troy. Senator Therese Terlahi, she called out Ed Byrne yesterday on you know, I'm trying to be nicer about my words. Normally I would call it a lie, but let's just call it false information. So yesterday, prior to Therese Terlahi getting the microphone, Chris Duenas was grilling Ed Byrne, and so was Joy Jean Arceo, who was on the executive director of the Mayor's Council. She was grilling Ed Byrne like pretty bad. And it all came down to, why did you cut checks to each of the mayors, like, of appropriated money? This is wrong. This goes against any of your accounting standards. You are the accounting director. Like, how, you are an accountant. Like, why would you do that? And Ed Byrne said, well, simply put, senators, it's because the language of the law says to disperse to the mayors. And then he qualified it, and he said the language for the Bavi authorization is different from the Sinlaku authorization. And everyone could have taken it at face value. Everyone could have been like, oh, this must have been the legislature's fault. Which, of course, you know, let me just say, like, just because it says disperse to the mayors, like, doesn't mean that you ignore all of the other laws that there are about, you know, certification of funds and how funds are to be handled and all that stuff, right? But anyway, so, you know, Therese Terlahi, she didn't take it at face value. She went to the two different laws, and she examined the two different laws, and she said, there's no difference, Mr. Byrne, in the language here. It says the same exact thing. And Ed Byrne, he starts to stumble, he starts to stutter, and he cannot provide an answer. And I think this, and this was, the administration came out with the governor's office. They released a statement from the Department of Administration, and they're very good at this. Right, the administration, they don't like to answer questions directly in news conferences. They'll stammer. They'll go about other things, but they will put out statements that cannot be questioned within or in the same vicinity. And whatever follow-ups that you ask, they provide a written statement, and it never really, like, they hardly ever answer questions directly. But before the legislature, you can see them stammering. And I want to play this first clip for you to show you exactly that. Hold on, I'm always having problems going to this thing. To show you exactly that. Stand by.
To the individual mayor's non-appropriated accounts because the language was different in the two bills, but I can't find that different language. Looks the same. It says shall be dispersed to the mayors.
Well, okay, I've only got the Barbie law here, but it says shall disperse $250,000 to each mayor's office.
Yeah. Yeah, and I have the other one here, and it says, Sinlaku says, shall disperse $250,000 from the funds appropriate herein to each mayor. Right?
Okay.
All right. Have those been spent? They said they were just transferred this week or Friday. Have those been spent?
That report, the expenditure report, is supposed to come afterwards.
So you don't know?
I don't know.
There's no one can track.
I don't think the senators can be able to or should trust anything Ed Byrne says from this point forward. Earlier that day, his chief argument for why he did what he did was that, oh, that's what the law told him, and if you had made the law like the Sinlaku law, he would have done something different. But that's not true at all, unless Therese Terlahi is reading from, something that's not actually the law and somebody just completely made up. Ed Byrne didn't tell the legislature something truthful. So how can the legislature trust what he says from this point forward? And let me tell you what I think is what really happened. And I think is because if you watch the exchange with Joy Jean Arceo, Chris Duenas, and Ed Byrne yesterday, Ed Byrne was very nervous, like more nervous than I've ever seen him, and he kept looking at his phone. I believe firmly and objectively, actually, that the dispersal of those funds directly to the mayors was ordered by Adaloop. And Adaloop ordered it because they want the mayors to be happy, and they want to include that in how they transact with the mayors who have, over the past several weeks, many of them endorsed Josh and Tina for governor and lieutenant governor. This is a straight up bribe of the mayors using public funds. Straight up. That's exactly what this is. And they have Ed Byrne trying to defend it by telling the legislature an untruth, telling the legislature a lie about why he did it the way he did, basing it on some law, a language in a law, which is the same exact thing as Sinlaku, but they did something different with Sinlaku. What is the difference here? And the difference is time. It's the proximity to the election on August 1. It's just as plain and simple as that. And I really believe that the only office that's going to do anything about this has to be the Attorney General's office. Now, the Guam Police Department ain't going to investigate corruption, and they're not going to investigate their own boss anyway. I don't know where the federal government is in all of this stuff, but I mean, they have the PUA stuff, and they recently kicked that can down the road. But I think our only hope here for any type of investigation into this, because this is a big deal, is the Attorney General. And it's not just us saying this. Senator Therese Terlahi, in just a little further down, and hold on, let me get to it. It's at 11806. She turns to Mayor Jesse Allig and Joy Jean Arceo to talk to them about this funding, and she calls it out for exactly what it is, and it even gets a chuckle out of Joy Jean and Mayor Allig. Here is Senator Terlahi with that.
For the mayors, the money was transferred to the individual mayors' accounts. You said some by electronic transfer, some by checks handed to these mayors. And I understand why you want that back to be just, they're going to get the money, but it's going to be through central accounting and reporting. Does the Mayor's Council buying any resources, for example, backhoes to keep for central, for, to share use, or every individual mayor has to get their own stuff? And why would some mayors support that they're going to get that money and bypass the central accounting system? Is that because of endorsements for the election or what?
That's a good one. But the truth is this, right? So the council, I can answer this. The council, in receiving emergency funds for Senlaku and Bavi, the mayors have been very adamant about buying or purchasing heavy equipment. We've been doing so. So rest assured that we have been purchasing heavy equipment for the villages. We also have rentals. We have a purchase order, which is a contractual services that we have annually for equipment rentals. So we're prepared for typhoons or any type of disaster that we have. Now, the challenge is we don't have much vendors that have that, the equipment that's needed. Yes. So this is why the mayors are opting to now purchase, which we will do so if the money is available and we follow what the law allows us to do.
All right. Is there more that the mayors need? That was we jumped from 100,000 in Senlaku to each mayor to 250,000. So was that enough? Was that too much? Was that too little?
So the bump from 100 to 250 was actually a good amount to prepare and to recover. And of course, when you're talking about purchasing heavy equipment, some of these items actually cost about half of that and more. So certainly when you're asking if any mayor needs more, they're going to tell you yes. And it's because we have been able to purchase heavy equipment for several villages, and everyone is seeing how that works better for them. To answer your question, if we had any central equipment, we did consider that in a previous budget, where the admin office would purchase equipment, and that it would be like a motor pool, and we would share it among the villages. And so, of course, there's politics in that.
Oh, politics?
So, yeah, who's going to get it first, right? Village A or Village B? And so it ended up being, that we preferred that every village purchase their own. Of course, our issue is maintenance and repair for these equipments. And so, of course, that's what the executive director is working on for everyone that currently has equipment. And that's the other reason why we're asking if we could keep that 1.8, or if we can get the 1.8 from Senlaku, those mayors that need it the most could actually purchase the heavy equipment for their villages. And that would certainly be one use of that money.
All right. It sounds like the mayor's use of the money is the only use in Bavi that was not for overtime, or that's not being requested for overtime, and it's actually being used for equipment or supplies.
It's covered. So what they did not do, or we're assuming they didn't do, is they did not pay us out. The check was not written, did not include the overtime that was allotted for each village. So we could still pay overtime.
Is what we understand. Is what we understand. Now, again, Senator, this is, again, with no communication So we're going in blind again, and we're hoping the numbers we have matches the numbers with DOA. If the communication was had on the onset, we probably would be able to provide answers not only to you, but to even our mayors.
Yeah, so it's not clear when the checks are dispersed the way they were, whether those mayors are going to pay the overtime or they're going to leave that for you or DOA or who.
So again, Senator, that was just in an email from one accountant to the other accountant, and we don't know what those figures are.
All right. Can I just ask, has any of the money from Sinlaco been used to pay for like generators that are going to be put at the water pump stations so that we're going to not have water outages as long as we did? Or is any of the money from Bobby going to be able to be put for those kind of uses, particularly generators for these critical needs?
It's my understanding, Senator, that that would be the responsibility of GWA.
Yes, but you also get a briefing of whether they actually have it or they don't, and if they don't, are we just going to sit and wait for water for days and weeks?
Test. So Senator, yes, generators, the FEMA generators are...
You gotta just love this administration with their second grade. That's not me, that's them. Like anything. Governor, how come the schools aren't ready yet to be open? Oh, that's not me, that's Department of Education. Governor, what about these problems over what about the power issues that we've been having in the load shed? Oh, that's not me. That's Guam Power Authority. Governor, what about these generators so that the water wells don't go down? That's not me. You got to ask Guam Water Works Authority. Ugh. I'm done with it. And that's why I'm going to go and vote. That's why, I mean, I'm not going to tell you who I'm going to vote for. I think you know who I'm not going to vote for, but I'm not going to tell you who I'm going to vote for. But that's why I'm going to go and vote, because I want to contribute to change. And the only way to make the math work, the only way that there can be a collective sigh of relief for change is if we add to the collective by being part of the collective. Now I'll tell you, they're talking about where is this money going and all this stuff with the mayors, and anywhere else that this administration gets able to get its hands on our money. That money, my friends, your money is going to make other people rich in an either unethical or illegal way. And if the media doesn't do its job, if the Attorney General doesn't do his job, if we as citizens do not do our job by speaking up and by voting, this kind of thing will absolutely continue to happen. On the other side of the commercial break, I want to bring you information about what the daycare centers, the childcare providers are going through and what they have been going through in a letter that was submitted by Lindsay Bennett, who is one of the childcare providers. We'll get to that on the other side of this commercial break. Stick with us.
You asked, we delivered. Guam Auto Spot is extending our overstock sell-off with the hottest deals on island, like our 2025 GMC Canyon with $4,000 off. Or slide into a brand new Mitsubishi Eclipse Cross, starting at just $24,995. September is your chance to drive big and save even bigger. Visit us today or get pre-approved online at guamautospot.com or call 478-AUTO. Guam Auto Spot, where the savings never stop.
This stuff's hitting the spot. Gosh, now I want crispy fried chicken from KFC. And you know, like when I eat, so yeah, I like original recipe too. But like I prefer crispy fried. But I'll get both, and I always ask for just drumsticks. Normally, when I eat chicken, I like chicken breast, but at KFC, like I'm just enamored by the drumsticks, and I'll get like maybe like 2 crispy and 1 original just to switch things up, right? But I always get it with the their red rice. They have really good red rice. Like, you just gotta admit. Yeah, and I know that this is true. I know that like almost everybody believes this because it's not only the easier thing to do, because red rice, I mean, it takes some time to make, right? It's not difficult to make, but it takes some time to make, and not everybody knows how to make it good. No offense if you're one of those people, but KFC just has really good red rice, and you know it because you see it at all the parties. So I get it with the little thing of red rice, the same thing size of their mashed potatoes and gravy, and their coleslaw. All of it with a biscuit. Now what were we talking about? Oh yes, childcare. Yes, childcare is more important than your stomach, Troy, than sandwich Troy. This is a letter by Lindsay Bennett, and it is here. Be educated with me. Get your education about this from Lindsay Bennett along with me, because I'm learning I am not up to date with this issue. Okay. This is what she wrote. Children are Guam's most valuable resource. They are also among our most vulnerable citizens, deserving of every opportunity to learn, grow, and thrive during their earliest years. Research has consistently shown that the first 5 years of life are critical to a child's development. During this period, children's brains develop at an extraordinary pace, laying the foundation for future learning and success. Can I just interject for a second? I know Lindsay's limiting this to early childhood education, basically the daycare centers and pre-K and stuff like that. But research, also the significant research has been done showing that it is necessary to ensure that a child is learning to standard through the 3rd grade, because if a child is learning to standard by the 3rd grade, that child has a much higher likelihood of learning to rigorous standards up to graduation and be prepared for the workforce. Anyway, continuing. Early childhood professionals devote their careers to nurturing that development, monitoring milestones, and providing the care and education that help children reach their full potential. At the same time, Guam faces significant economic challenges. Yeah. Families are working harder. Can you tell that to the administration? Families are working harder than ever to make ends meet. Parents need reliable childcare so they can work, attend school, or pursue job training. Without affordable childcare, many simply cannot participate in the workforce. The Child Care and Development Fund subsidy, commonly referred to as the block grant, has been a lifeline for many working families. It has helped parents access quality childcare and has supported workforce participation across our island. Unfortunately, the system has not worked as well for the childcare providers entrusted with delivering those services. For years, many centers have experienced delayed reimbursement payments after providing care. Providers continue serving children, paying staff, purchasing supplies, and maintaining safe learning environments, only to learn that reimbursement funds are delayed or unavailable. Child care centers cannot operate indefinitely without dependable cash flow. These financial challenges have real consequences. In our own center, we were forced to discontinue valuable behavior services because reimbursement delays and funding uncertainties made them financially unsustainable. Services that directly benefited children had to be eliminated, not because they lacked value, but because the funding system lacked reliability. Beginning in January 2026, reimbursement rates were also reduced across Guam. While many states determine subsidy rates using market rate surveys and cost estimation studies that reflect the actual cost of providing child quality care, Guam adopted an alternative methodology to establish reimbursement levels. The resulting rates remained close to pre-pandemic levels despite years of inflation and rising operating costs. The result is a system that places financial pressure on everyone involved. Providers struggle to cover increasing expenses. Parents are responsible for larger co-payments at a time when many household budgets are already stretched thin. Because childcare had been fully subsidized for an extended period, many families were unprepared for the sudden return of significant out-of-pocket costs. Child care providers raised these concerns with public health officials and warned that the reimbursement rates were insufficient to sustain quality programs. Those concerns deserve continued consideration because the long-term health of Guam's child care system depends on funding that reflects the true cost of delivering safe, high-quality care. Every delayed reimbursement affects more than a business. It affects teachers who deserve to be paid on time. It affects children whose programs may be reduced. It affects parents who depend on stable childcare to remain employed. And ultimately, it affects Guam's economy. Quality early childhood education is not simply another government expense. It is an investment that pays dividends for decades. Gosh, that's such a great line because it's so true. It strengthens school readiness, supports workforce participation, reduces long-term social costs, and helps build a stronger community. If Guam truly believes that early childhood education is essential, then our funding priorities should reflect that belief. Absolutely. Child care providers should receive fair reimbursement rates based on the actual cost of care. Payments should be timely, so when delays occur, providers deserve prompt communication rather than months of uncertainty. Supporting childcare providers is not about helping one industry. It is about supporting working families, strengthening our economy, and investing in the next generation of Guam's leaders. Our children deserve a system that values their education. Our parents deserve dependable childcare, and the professionals who dedicate their lives to caring for Guam's youngest citizens deserve funding that is fair, reliable, and delivered on time. That's by Lindsay Bennett. You know, I want to leave you with this. When in 2018, in November 2018, when Lulian Guro won the election, I voted for her in 2018, not in the primary, but in the general election, because the choice was between her and Ray Tenorio, and that was just, if I had to make a choice between Lulian Guro and Ray Tenorio again, I would still choose Lulian Guro. So I don't have misgivings about how I voted in that election, except that, you know, both of them were not the right choice. Like this is an example of why a primary election is so important, right? Like the right choice for governor lost the primary election to Lulian Guro. It's just as simple as that. And so we were only left with Ray Tenorio versus Lulian Guro. And just in case anyone thinks that their vote won't count, one of those choices, and whether you believe this was the right choice or not, right? One of those choices, Frank Uggan, was within just a few votes of defeating Lulian Guro in the primary election. It was a very close election. This is why it's very important to vote in August. Anyway, I digress. What I wanted to say was, when she won the election, one of the things that I felt good about was, oh, you know, this is a nurturing Democrat. Like she is, and I thought that she subscribed to the principles of the Democratic Party, and one of them is support for early childhood education. And so what I was thinking was, because Eddie Calvo, surprisingly a Republican, surprisingly one of the biggest, most staunch supporters of early childhood education, to the point where he was trying to get universal daycare funded in the Department of Education. Like DOE didn't ask him for this. He volunteered this in his fiscal year 2014 budget, and all budgets moving forward, millions of dollars additional to DOE if the money was anchored to expanding early childhood education, or pre-K, for 4-year-olds, then 3-year-olds, and then 2-year-olds. Structured educational settings for early childhood learners. He championed this. This was his thing. And you know who took him down on it? You know who didn't want him to do it? Was a Democrat. Ironically, the current superintendent of education, then Speaker Judy Wonpat. I digress. So there was this emphasis on early childhood learning, on early learning. And a matter of fact, Christine Calvo, who was the first lady at the time, she was, I believe, the chairwoman of the Early Learning Council, if I'm not mistaken. So, and Eddie Calvo is super devoted to, those two have a whole love story, right? But if it was important to Christine Calvo, it was super important to Eddie Calvo, right? And that was, early learning was important to Christine Calvo. But, education had always been important to this guy, right? But my point is that he was a Republican. He wasn't supposed to believe in all that stuff. That wasn't, you see the National Republicans axing programs like this, right? So when a Republican who was so into early childhood education left office and was being replaced with a Democrat who was supposed to be a supporter of early learning came in, I thought like, oh, this is going to be good. She's going to not just continue what Calvo did, but strengthen what Calvo did. And maybe Wonpat would, and people like her would support these changes that Eddie wanted to do if a Democrat like Lou did it. But here we are, my friends, 7.5 years later. And here we are. The priority is a seawall. The priority is bribes to mayors. The priority is not telling the truth to the legislature. The priority is bailing out the airport again because they can't get their fiscal act together. And the priority is not early childhood education and daycare centers. The priority is not the homeless man in Hoggett with his 3 dogs. The priority is not the people who lost their homes from Bobby or who have damage and car damage. The priority is not you who lost food because of the power outages due to Bobby. The priority is not your welfare, your consideration, the things that concern you and your families. The priority, absolutely for them, is getting reelected and staying in power and transacting with those who will allow them to do so. For Kandit News, I'm Troy Torres. You all have a beautiful day. God bless you, and I'll see you tonight for the Troy Torres Show.
Tony and I got married at an early age, and back then, we didn't have much. But from the very beginning, Tony was determined to create a better future for our family. Shortly after we were married, Tony joined the Army and we moved to our first duty station at Fort Campbell, Kentucky. Those weren't always easy years, but they taught us the importance of sacrifice, faith, and commitment. What I've always admired about my husband is that he's the same person at home that people see in the public. He's honest, he's humble, and he genuinely cares about people. He's a devoted husband, a loving father, and a proud grandfather. Tony and I have been together for 43 years, and I've been blessed to stand beside him through every chapter of our lives. I'm Annette Umpinko Ada, and I humbly ask for your support and vote for my husband, Tony Ada, for Governor of Guam.
I'm Tony Ada, and I approve this message. Together, we'll put Guam first.